here today, just one member of this conference is away. Oh, she's on her way, okay, so she's not fully away. And so, we'll have all board members here shortly. And we're joined by our staff and advisors and consultants that we have. One guest today, Brian Connor, is here to talk about the EBRM properties, or otherwise known as Union Square. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. Let me start with my report, and it's mostly kind of an update on the Smart Farm project. You know, include Jeff if you want to join in. But so after we met last month, we agreed to sign a bill of sale and take over the assets of the Smart Farm. And we, as the Glens Falls IDA, agreed to do that. And so we ended up dating that bill of sale agreement March 25th, 2025. It goes back to our meeting that we had in March where we actually originally agreed to that. Last month, and so that agreement has been signed. Okay, and the bills associated with the Smart Farm that we agreed to pay last month, some of them were for activities that occurred prior to March 25th, when we signed the agreement. And so, we're changing those bills, okay? And so today, I'm gonna ask you to approve payment of bills of just items that we've been billed for, Smart Farm has been billed for, April, May, June, and July, which is the rent, which is $500 a month rent, for, the facility, which is at Bridge Street. 1824. Yeah, just about. So, that's $2,000. And so then, we did have bills from Figure Consulting, I think for the last quarter of 2024 and the first quarter of 2025, and the city is taking care of those. So we're taking them out. So when we get to Schedule A, Schedule A that we have there is not correct, then I'll just go back over that.
Good job saving us money, Judy.
Saving us money.
Seriously, that was good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Probably a good 5,000 or 6,000 maybe.
Yeah.
So Jeff is putting together a plan, and we'll be modifying our budget accordingly, and adding Smart Farm is an item in our budget, so there'll be an updated budget or budget resolution for this year and a plan for next year. We've agreed that we would pay up to $20,000 of IDA resources to cover these expenses over the next several months. And so at some point, we hope that the farm will transition over to someone else.
You missed nothing, except for Judy saved us like $6,000. You're up.
Standard.
So Jeff will put that together and,
Yeah.
anyway.
As I mentioned a couple of previous meetings, I think, so we're working with EDC on this sort of reverse marketplace project. And so he's got 2 interns, really smart young guys, that are helping him this summer. And I'm working with them, getting the assets together, getting a plan together. The budget that Judy's alluding to, you know, there's a world in which, a real world in which we'll probably have these assets disposed of, or at least we're not running it by the end of the year. Having said that, you know, the idea is not just to, you know, transfer these to someone that may or may not know what they're doing and have no recourse if it doesn't work. So we want to have some control over these, right, over the long term if, for instance, this doesn't happen. It's about $70,000 worth of equipment and stuff that we're getting from the city. So we want to make sure we have some
Who's
coverage.
tracking those docs, Dave or you? The docs going to a potential buyer, transfer of assets.
Well, they're working on
We're getting a
on our
proposal.
Understood, but I'm just, the right of reverter has to be really carefully drafted.
That would be something that would come through this
Be-
board.
Yeah,
Right,
so-
this is all just from the city to us that.
Understood, right.
We're talking about from us to some operator.
Right, so the city's not retaining the right of reverter. The city is granting the access
Correct.
to us completely.
Correct.
But we want to continue control.
Correct.
So, yeah.
So it's my
yeah.
understanding that you're working with EDC to put together that proposal,
Correct.
which will then come to this board for
Correct.
review before it goes out.
And you would help with the contract of the right
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah.
That-
We've talked about the process
Yeah.
for the transfer of
And
assets.
just as an interesting sidebar, and I know Judy mentioned this, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, there's a world in which these assets might make their way over to 36 Inc. In the basement, for instance. If it's possible, the premise of this, I don't want to go down the road too far right
I'm
now.
not eating anything that's grown in the basement.
It's a contained space.
And
If you gone into that building, the only place
He
that
always goes just a bit too far.
Just one step.
He always thinks
I said
outside.
there's a world in which it's an alternative universe perhaps, but anyway, that's something, if there were an opportunity there, that would be a way that we could sort of control costs, maybe, provide some. It would fit into, I think, the universe over there at 36 Elm and the Ed, as far as the purpose and everything. So, anyway, just something to keep in mind as we go through. We'd have to dispense with it, I don't really want to think about that too much. Anyway, that's where we are.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, do you want to talk about any other projects, or you want to do it as part of the project?
Well, just to let you know broadly, I've had at least 3 in the last couple of weeks. I've had 3 different developers approach the idea about possible projects they want to work on. One was before the planning board last week, the project they're building at 170 Maple. Another one down on South Street and another one on Glen. So and another one on Murray Street. Now that I mentioned it.
There's actually a 5th over over at the corner of Leonard and Cooper.
So there's lots of interest. There's still the overhang from costs and things like that. The uncertainty is still affecting a lot of developers. I think we just have so much momentum in Glens Falls that it's sort of, people want to get these things done. Occasionally they can't make the numbers work, and I think we're seeing sort of a little example of that here in a few minutes. But there's so much impetus to get development here, to do things in Glens Falls. We just got a lot of wind at our backs.
To that point, I got a call last week from a realtor, not somebody that I work with, but somebody who does more commercial development, who asked me about how to get an application, what the parameters were, whatever. And we had a conversation about the fact that this entity should do, not this summer, obviously, but some sort of educational piece for the, local MLF, the multiple listing service or whatever, the Realtor Association, and educate them about what is available, especially if we're going to go into partially residential. I mean, they don't know. And a lot of these like rehabbers are actually working with realtors, not just, not developers who are able to do this stuff on their own.
Yeah.
But smaller entities, but who could take some of our older housing stock and do something with it. And
Yeah.
they just need to know what's available to try
What
and
the options
promote.
are.
So an educational evening or something or other might behoove us.
Yeah, it would be worthwhile. It's been hard because, as you guys know, when I got in this job, it sort of hit the ground running because all the stuff with the DRI was just there all the time. So we got to get this moving. And as we move through that, all these other projects, which are all sort of disaggregated projects all in the city, sort of take over. And you can't really stop to hold on. I'm going to have an educational session, and you should join that because you're like, I got to go now. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So it'd be a great idea. Although, having said that, one of the reasons I like talking to people is because what you essentially have when any developer comes in is you have a snapshot of what's available right this minute. Because 6 months from now, that might not be available. What was available 6 months ago is not available now. Or we've got this new grant, like the VREP is a perfect example. you know, where you have, it's a wonderful program, started pretty quickly, we're supposed to move through it pretty quickly, we're getting a lot of interest in it, but many people don't qualify. I mean, it's a pretty narrow parameter within which you have to get this money.
Well,
So,
even educating them to the fact that we operate within the parameters of other grants, and therefore we are not always able to do what they would ask, would be good education.
yeah, and throwing, go ahead, I'm saying throwing the kinds of support, broadly speaking, if you say, you know, there are grants available, sometimes there's revolving loans available, low interest loans, you know, there are tax benefits available, maybe not going into the weeds with each one because it may be
Right.
more or less relevant, you know.
Shouldn't you do, if you're gonna do that, which I think is a great idea, wouldn't you do that kind of thing about all of the agencies together? And do it maybe semi-annual, I was gonna say quarterly, but that just seems onerous to do it 4 times a year, but maybe how about twice a year? You invite in all your real estate agent, any developers, anybody who's in the business industry who might be coming or has come to Glens Falls. They could hear about, first of all, let's talk about the agency, what its mission is, right? Then the current programs that are changing all the time, in and out, and these are the kinds of things. And then go on to the next agency, and then your applications are always online, and here's your contact
Yes.
people. And you know, I mean,
Absolutely.
what a neat idea
Yeah.
to be able to do that and have a regular cadence of it. And
Yeah.
anybody can at any time get an application, but in
But
2
they don't
months,
even know. They
you'll
didn't
get a
even
full
know that that was
overview of
available.
what it is.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And also, our governance committee is still considering and has not brought forward a possible change to our pilot agreements where we would maybe consider doing residential only. So, I don't know if we can meet in July or August, but maybe it's something we could move forward
In the fall.
with in the fall.
Yeah.
And see if we want to finalize that too. And then there'd be an update as well. Okay, all right, thank you. So then I'm gonna move on to the minutes from our June 12th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
Yep.
Very good, and is there a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, any nays, any abstentions? There being none, motion is passed. We've got the financial report for 6 months ending June 30, 2025. And Mark Toomey is here with us today. Mark, do you want to add anything to that?
Just income wise, we got the check from patent property for $750, and then the payroll for myself, 40%, $414 for May. That's it.
Okay. All right. And as I mentioned, I did not sign the checks for Smart Farm, but we're going to modify that today. Okay. Any questions on the financial report from Mark? There being none, is there a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
So
So moved.
second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the financial report is approved and we'll get that filed up on our website. So for the payment of bills today, the Schedule A, which you have, for the IDA checking remains the same. There are 4 bills to pay. Mark Toomey, Jeff Flagg, Fitzgerald, Morris Baker, and Anderson Advisory for a total of $4,089. For this, what's called the IDA farm checking, which is Smart Farm. And it says here previously approved at the June 12th meeting, so we're modifying that today for the space at 1822 Ridge Street. We're asking approval of the rent for 4 months, starting in April, going to May, June, and July, for a total of $2,000 or $500 per month, and no other bills. So we're eliminating number 2 and number 3 for J. Fabian Consulting. And so total of $2,000 for that.
May, June, July.
April, May, June.
April, May,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
April,
yeah.
May, June, July. Yeah, 4 months, 500 each. Any questions on that? There being none, is there a motion to approve the payment of bills as amended as I reported?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the motion is approved, thank you. Okay, so let's do any other reports, or let's go to project reports, okay, Jeff?
Yeah,
So let's do 4556 South Street first,
Right.
which closed, what, July 3rd?
that's
July
just closed.
third.
Oh,
July
wow.
third.
What?
Lucky day for
8
you.
o'clock PM or something?
You got-
I didn't even have to go, it was great.
you got the zoning listed
I
holiday.
signed it, right?
Yeah, everybody signed ahead, they closed, they did close later in the
Yeah.
afternoon on July 3rd.
Yeah, and just to dovetail that, so as you guys know, and I think we talked about last meeting, there was some discussion, we're looking at the governance committee's looking at the prospect of amending the UTEP, the Uniform Tax Exempt Policy. So, in the absence of that right now, Chris had been talking to us, I think Chris Patton had been talking to us about the prospect of getting developed with the Rite Aid building, which has now recommenced after, Skull was found. But, because we couldn't do that, I pointed him over to the Warren Washington IDA and Chuck Barton. I don't know where he's gone with that, but Chuck did mention that he reached out to him, so I said if there's an.
He submitted
He
it.
did, okay. So he's pretty much set. On the other side of the street, the South Street projects, phase one of Bonaccia's projects are moving along. They were in front of the city council on Tuesday looking for an encroachment permit for phase two, the new building. On that encroachment permit, they indicated that they're looking to have Elm Street open by early to mid-November. So they're looking at the three buildings in phase one being done by probably early November. I think they said mid-November in the application, but, and then they're looking at breaking ground by the end of this month. They're gonna be closing on the phase two property on the 16th, a week from today. It's today, the 9th? Oh, less than a week from today, yeah. Next Wednesday. And then we'll be commencing shortly thereafter. So that last project is gonna be moving. I'm guessing that project alone will be under construction by the end of the year. But I think Chris will
Well,
probably.
they have to, with the financing they have from the state, they'd have to start within 30 days.
Correct, and
Yes.
they're chomping at the bit to, or champing the sunset, to begin as soon as possible.
So they'll start, I think, before August 15th.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
They're
they'll
gonna be
put
before
a
August
shovel in the ground, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, they'll start their preliminary, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll notice much, but the only thing they're doing now is they have to push out the fence in front on South Street a little bit, until there's solar parking.
This is the right,
This is, no, this is the phase two project for Bonaccia.
So let us, when we get back, we need to, I wanna get a date, I wanna do a
Get some
groundbreaking with them, and make sure you're all there. This is a huge project for Glens Falls. $26 million worth of development, 88 apartments. Let's make sure that we get it the attention it deserves. Thank you.
It's only the second, what's called the 9% low-income housing tax credit, which has been around for almost 40 years. It's only the second one in the city.
Okay.
Yeah, that's ever been financed that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, just so you know, as a sidebar, I had a young guy, Ian Tim, who was at the council meeting, because I needed him for Bonaccia. He mentioned that they just finished a project in Corinth.
They did a housing project, the credit union backed, yes.
Okay, because he said it's very similar. That's not the scale, but he said it's small. He said, so if anybody's interested, he said, you want to see sort of what we're going to be getting. He said, this is a pretty good proxy over there. I mean, it's not done, it's very close.
It's not, as far as I know, not done, but yeah. They're up though. Yeah, you can see them.
Any questions about that? Next, Crew Coffee. I haven't heard anything from them recently. I don't know.
So, their attorney was on vacation last week, last week, the first Charlie. They've gotten approval from the bank to schedule, and now they're trying to schedule with the bank attorney, so it's a scheduling situation now. They are really hoping, they're really pushing and hoping to be able to close as soon as possible. As far as I know, everything is clear to go, it's just a matter of scheduling.
So nothing out there. Smart Farm, we talked about the asset transfer process, which is really going. And then lastly, as you guys know, I think for a few meetings now, we've been talking, I think, Ron, you were here actually one other time, I believe. Were you not?
About a year ago.
Yeah, wasn't that long ago. So Ryan Connor and his wife own EBRM, EBRM Properties, who own a number of properties on Glen Street, multi-family properties that are really nice, done a great job. A little over a year ago, I think they bought Union Square, which you may know has two wings. The front wing has been finished and occupied for many years. The back wing, with some small exceptions, has been essentially vacant. The top 2 floors of the 3-floor building have been always vacant. They had some offices downstairs. So when Ryan wanted to come and upgrade the, rehab that wing, he approached us and we were looking at some different opportunities, and one of them, of course, was giving some help from the IDA. So Brian, I don't know if you want to come up here if anybody has any questions, but if you just want to talk just a little bit about the project. We have an application. One of the things we had to look at was to sort of look at the financing within the context of the 2 wings. Essentially, you've got 2 projects. You've got the occupied space that he has and is using, and people including AJ Architecture, the Salt Cave, and there's a kitchen, Zobel kitchen.
With the Sun mortgage.
Yeah, there's a few people in there. Yeah, and then you've got the backside, which I think has some opportunities there. So do you want to just tell us where you are in the process?
Yeah. Yes, I do think it was, I looked at my notes, it was a year ago I was here. We closed on the property end of September. So really we took ownership October 1. We spent the winter honestly getting to know the property. We fixed a lot of roof leaks, I'll tell you that. And other leaks, so just trying to shore up the property a bit. And we've been improving the common space on the front, and that's what we've been doing, just cleaning up the halls. I don't know what's been in there, but we improved the entry, improved the halls, just all those basic things that the current tenants appreciate. Right now, we're pretty well along the lining up financing for the back wing, right? So, and what our project we've scoped is 14 apartments. It would be 7 per floor on the top 2 floors of that back wing, which are completely vacant right now. Okay.
Have been for a long time, right? That
Yeah.
building's been empty.
Decades.
Yeah, and that's nothing there. It's not like there's empty apartments.
And they did shoot good portions of that movie, Radium Bridge, in
In that location.
that
yeah.
location, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the target space. It's basically like a wide open, the movie?
I was in the movie.
You were in the movie?
There you go.
We didn't know we had
I
stuff.
mentioned that.
You didn't know, it was a plan. I don't know about it. You didn't know? Oh, the movie?
It's a great movie, and they shoot the court scenes in the old courthouse in Lake George, in the Warren County Courthouse, which now is basically a museum, art gallery museum. Sorry. No, it's
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yep, so the spaces, each floor there is nearly 6,000 square feet. Again, 7 units per floor, so we're sizing up. I think when I presented last year, I said 18, because we were also looking at, I call it like an intermediate wing, but there's like a center spot. But since we've been prepping that to be commercial space, I just, it seems fitting, and it seems like there's the interest. So for that reason, we're gonna actually go, and when we submit our building permit, it's gonna be for 14 apartments, in the back 2 completely vacant spaces.
Have you got parking for those units?
Yeah, when I brought it to the planning board, we covered that too, but we have 76 spaces in the building.
The one along this side has 76?
No, there's 3 lots.
In
There's
the back,
the
that's
one-
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Those
There's
are yours,
one-
I didn't know whose,
Yeah.
if they went with a great, whose they were.
Yeah, there's 3 lots around the building. We're putting some thought into, like, we would probably create separation so that there's clear residential parking
That would be.
versus business parking. Yeah, like we would devote, I think my wife and I, our current plan is to devote, when you look at the building, a big lot on the left,
On the corner?
On the corner, yeah, the corner portion of that would be all residential parking, okay? I mean, today it's probably the most available parking
Right.
if you're going to business, so businesses there. So that's the parking.
Okay, thank you.
And what's the total square footage of commercial space between
Existing and new?
existing and new, you know?
I've worked the numbers so many times. I think existing is about 15,000 square feet, not including the hallways. Common areas in that building take up a lot of space. Let's
Okay.
comment that. So I would say you could call it about 45% of the building right now is commercial space, okay? When we're done, it's probably gonna be more like 55, 60% commercial space, because we also have our eyes on the ground floor, which is half below grade and half above. It's where the physical therapist is right now. The whole back wing is completely wide open, and that's another thing we spent the past 9 months doing, is we got that completely cleared out and prepped to do something. Okay, so we have plus, call it 5,000 square feet of potential commercial space right there that we've prepped. And that's also a piece of what we're gonna be doing in that back wing.
And of the residential units, ones and twos,
Ones,
all ones?
yes,
Okay. All one bedroom.
unless yeah, we just, in our experiences, being very frank, it's what we always get the most need on the ones.
Okay. Okay.
It's funny, people that have been advocates of no development right now. There's a lot of fear out there as Glens Falls is on this range. Maybe I understand it or hear it more because I'm the mayor and that's where the bragging comes. But there are people out there who have no idea that that's in high demand, 1-bedroom apartments. I think we all want to hear about the 2- and 3-bedroom and that we're bringing families in, and me too, right? But the reality is that there are a lot of people, even couples, that don't have kids, that are that next generation, right? I got a son that's 30 years old living at 14 Hudson, and he's getting a 2-bedroom apartment because he couldn't find a 1-bedroom apartment, not because he needs it, right?
We had the market study that was done for the Bellagio Phase 2 project, and it was done probably about a year ago, and it's high demand for ones. That was a pretty decent study.
Yeah, so there's a few things to keep in mind about that whole dynamic, which is, one is that most families, my experiences certainly around here, aren't that thrilled about going into an apartment building anyway. So if we can find alternatives, maybe converting homes and things like that back into multifamily homes. A lot of these big houses, we don't want to tear them down. They're historical, but they're too big for an individual family. Maybe could be converted into good, multifamily apartments. Another one is that in many cases there are people who will move into apartments and vacate the houses where families can go. If you have people who live in a 3-4 bedroom house that don't want to live in 3 or 4 bedrooms, they'll sell it and the families can move in there. One other thing to keep in mind, sort of tangential to that, is it's worth keeping in mind when you talk about getting support from the IDA. People always think, well, you're getting tax breaks and that. Now they're not paying taxes. This building, and I meant to look at it and I didn't. They're already paying substantial taxes on this building. It's not as if we're cutting the taxes, right? What we're doing is we're trying to find a way for them to, invest more without being immediately, I don't want to say penalized, but giving them time to get the construction done, get the building filled out, get it occupied, and then build that sort of the development, in the tax base. So, there's no reduction in anything. And a building like this, they're already, they bought it with an occupied building with taxes on it. That assessed value was going to go up, and the tax will go up with it over time as we do that. So it's worth keeping in mind. There are different circumstances in each case when you're trying to give some support to projects like this.
Yeah, I acknowledge that's a headwind from a budget perspective. The other one is actually we have to keep that whole building heated, because the sprinkler, right now the utilities run the whole building and it's sprinklered, so we need to heat it. Yeah. Okay, so it kind of burns me, but it's we're heating 40,000 plus square feet. So like our carrying costs with the building are very high right now. Yeah, and that's where we
we already approved, or we talked about the bills. But there's also, the location that we're still renting. And, that is with, what is his name?
Brian Bronzino,
It's Ron.
what is the company?
So I do not, so we have a,
We got it.
we have an agreement, and we just got it late last night. We had a version before it, and we had needed changes, and so Kara got changes, we just got it late last
The
night.
technical owner is 1822 Ridge Street LLC.
Okay, so I would sign that on our behalf if you guys are in agreement that we would continue to rent that space.
And it's a month-to-month.
It's a
lease.
month-to-month lease, and it's $500 per month, and, obviously, at some point, we need to move it, and, but for now, that's where we are.
What do you do about transfer, about adding this space to our liability insurance?
I'm talking to Chip about that right now.
Yeah.
So it currently was under the city's
Yes.
insurance, and now we've got to add it to ours, and so we're gonna have that added expense too. And I haven't signed the lease agreement yet, but
I was just gonna say, can we get that in place before you do, please?
yes,
Thank you.
okay. All right,
So with that contingency, the motion to approve $500 lease?
month-to-month lease, once insurance is in place. I'll
Thank you.
sign that at some point in the next week, hopefully. Okay. All right. All in favor of that motion?
Yeah, I'll second you.
Second?
Yeah. Aye.
Aye. Any nays, abstentions? There being none, we'll go forward with that as well.
It is.
Any other business? All right, there being none, again, August, can, folks give us some idea of when in
I am out of town until the 10th.
So after the 10th, and how many days do we need anyways?
We
We need,
have time to,
we need a 30-day notice.
no, 10.
10
So we
day
have
notice.
time to
Okay.
get it in.
Okay, so, I hit my calendar. Anybody else have any other August dates that you want us to avoid?
I have
so many, so come up with some.
Yeah,
August
yeah.
is like terrible.
Rest of luck.
Do we want to try to do it at the end of July?
I'm gone the 14th through the 24th
Of July?
of August.
Yeah, so do you want to try to do this earlier?
We can't, we need, well,
We need 10 days.
10 days, so we can't do it till the 20th. It's up to you, I'm just trying to.
a second meeting in a month, it is at a,
What's the last?
what do we, then we have to give special notice, right?
Public hearing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can do it all at once with the notice. I'm not here the 25th through the 1st, but you're welcome to meet here and have a meeting.
Are we talking
What month?
What month are you
July.
talking?
July.
I'm talking about July,
Ah.
if you're thinking the last week.
What? Yeah.
The 31st, that's the last.
Okay, well, this is what we'll do. We'll stick to August when Kara's available because.
It's
this is
important
what
that-
we
And
can-
you might be locked up at home
Right.
meeting.
And,
Right, exactly.
and, Kara, Jeff and I will get together and we'll try to get 2 or 3 options and we'll send around an email, okay? All right, so we won't do that right now. Very good. All right.
Midweek and it'll be better for me anytime.
So,
And we'll check with
After.
Ryan too.
yeah, we need Ryan to come as well. Okay, very good. All right, folks, motion to adjourn. Second.
Second,
We are adjourned, thank you.
thank you.
Which means you're
Let
on.
us open
We
the
are,
Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation, it's still July 10th. Call the meeting to order, we do have a quorum, we have our staff and key advisors. First up in your packets are the minutes to the meeting held on June 12th. Are there any corrections, changes, or adjustments to make to the minutes? Not hearing any, we have a motion to approve the minutes of June 12th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Under financial reports, 6 months ending June 30th. Mark, you have an update for us?
We had a reversal of an injunction for year-end 24 for mayor and Fuller, attorneys for $825 from Social Credit. check we wrote to Morgan Company for $6,000, and, May 60% payroll for 8/21. That's it.
And for the record, that was a small business support check that went to Morgan Company for, what was it?
Equipment.
Yeah, chiller, I think it was a chiller for the walking. So,
Okay. Any questions about the bills? Do we have a motion to, or excuse me, any, about the financial report? Not hearing any, do we have a motion to approve the report?
So moved?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Under payment of bills, we've got, Mark, I'll turn it back over to you.
So my June hour, 60% for 414, Danforth's second quarter CEO rate for 1,625. Gene Lapper, 24 audit for 1,800, and Cheryl bill for 480, for a total of $4,319.
Any questions about the bills? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you very much. Other reports, we have a building and codes update regarding the Crew Coffee project in Tech Meadows. PJ has brought an update for us.
yeah, so as part of our conversation with the Crew Coffee project, PJ has offered to come and give us a brief discussion about how the process works after the joint committee approves the design and how that goes from here. So
has everybody had a chance to meet PJ Cancellaire as our acting department head for building and codes here at the city of Glens Falls in our newly developed department. As soon as I've taken office, we have an entirely new department. And so
A new department or just a revised?
new staff.
Right, yeah,
New
right,
staff,
right. We
department,
have created.
it's
With the
operations.
changes we've made, it might as well be a new department.
Well, that's, anything would be.
We're actually
Yes.
following state regulations and city codes, so I'd say it's
Anyway, thank you, yes, agreed, so I just, everybody, PJ, go ahead, PJ.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, we're still, for the update before we get into the general overview, there were some issues with the construction plans that were submitted 8-10 weeks ago. We got a revision to those plans a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, at the end of June, and there's still some issues. So we sent back our comments, principle being that they're classifying their structure as a business occupancy and not a factory. And why that's important, it changes fire code and it changes maximum square footage that you can have a production of foodstuffs that they're going for with their intended use. They were limited to 2,500 square feet. We looked at the plans and said you're at like 5,500, I want to say off the top of my head. So that's one of the holdups that we deal with all projects, is making sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I like to tell people we're just glorified fact checkers. We don't design, we try not to advise, we try and fact check and make sure that whatever they're putting in there is what the code states. So it's pretty minor, the few things that we caught, so I imagine within a week or so of their final submission, we should have the permit issued. I know there were some questions about why this took so long, since there's a model site plan, and it's supposed to be shovel ready. Same sort of issue. When you actually read through the 220-21 or 20.1 LIA code section, there's a lot of very specifics that they were missing. There's the shared agreement for the roadway. They didn't have that in their initial submission. Getting the noise and generated light to what was acceptable to the code, since there are very specific decibel and candle regulations in the code. And then I wasn't here in 2017 3 or 4 when this came about, but I've been told by John Ellingsworth from the fire department who helps us out, who was here, that the generated traffic was the point of contention. And it's very clear in the code, keeping that to a minimum. So that was really the delay, was making sure that they gave us the information that the model site plan required, and that the information was correct and code compliant.
And these are all per the light industrial zone,
Yeah.
specifically designed for Tech Meadows.
Exactly. Like when you read through the code, I've got it up here, you know, green space, that was one of the issues we had, that at least 5% of the parking lot interiors shall be devoted to green space. Their initial site plan that they presented did not have that. The parking lot lighting, originally they had open fixtures, it very clearly states shoebox style fixtures, and that interior parking lot lighting shall not exceed 7.5 foot candles. Like, the code is very specific. The poles aren't supposed to be higher than 20 feet. The height of their original proposal was 25. So it's a lot of these, the code says that they have to follow it, and if they don't follow it, then they can't get approval. And it just, you know, there's a few things in here that were pretty big. The generated trips, the noise, you know, they had to develop these schedules and maps to show that they were containing the sound and the light within the property, that they were meeting the green space requirements, that they had a stormwater management plan that keeps all of the stormwater on the parcel and it doesn't spill out. So they did get approval. I think that was about 2.5 months of making sure that their site plan matched the code requirements of the model site plan. We did tell them in the code there is an option for just a regular site plan if they didn't want to adhere to what the model site plan and those requirements have, but I think that ultimately the planning board would probably fall back on what's in there for the model anyways, because this is a model site plan zone. Once we got past that, we got to the building permit phase, and for commercial construction, it's probably, we tell people 6 to 8 weeks, and that's assuming that the plans are correct.
And these plans were not correct,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Yeah, the occupancy is a big one. Most of the time, even architects and engineers just don't put it on the plans. And that's a big no-no from the state, just not, because your occupancy classification dictates how you review it. And like I said, they're going for an F1 occupancy, which is a low hazard factory, and they had it designated as a business. And we're looking at the plans going, all right, so is this an accessory occupancy where this area is going to be an F1 and the rest of it's going to be a B or whatever? And that's not a good place to be. In this circumstance, there's really no difference. If you look at a lot of the charts, the F1 and the B are grouped together when you're looking at charts to figure out fire resistance rating and whatnot, but it can. And the devil's in the details. And there's a lot of exceptions that designers like to use for you know, reductions in insulation and thermal barrier and ventilation. And again, that's very dependent on what they classify it as. And the big issue here was, as currently designed, they're exceeding what's allowable for manufacturing and business occupancy. So, like I said, it's fact checking, and that's what we do. The issues that are there now are pretty minor. Like I said, when we spoke to the designer, they're like, "Oh shoot, I thought we changed that." So, I didn't think that the first round was going to take 6 to 8 weeks to get revised plans back. So, whenever we get the plans, we're waiting for it. At this point, it's just changing text fields on the plans. It's not redeveloping or redesigning or adding design features or assemblies to the building, so it should be pretty easy. Plus, the terrace was also a bit of an issue because of how the code handles terraces, because terraces aren't by definition a separate floor, they're part of whatever floor you designated. So there's a lot of very specific fire code regulations that come into effect with terraces.
And without respect to the fourth and backing that you guys are going through, it sounded like, Carol, from what you were saying, that the financing issue is holding them up at this point anyway, right? So none of this is compromising their ability to move the project forward, and with any luck, it sounds like they're not too far from
Yeah.
here. They'll probably be dovetailing again, the financing and the construction anyway, so we're fortunate in that sense.
There's sometimes when we send plan review letters back where, you know, we send it off and go, they're gonna have to tear up the plans and just start over from scratch, or half of the plans, you know, they're worthless, they're not worth the paper they're printed on. Sometimes, and I would say with the most recent plan review that we did, it would be an hour of, you know, probably a junior designer going back through and just updating it. They could really use it as a punch list and say, oh crap, we didn't change it from a B to an F1. Because I'm assuming the initial design was to have some sort of retail in there, which you can't have in the LIA. And it just never got updated from the initial conceptual plans. That would be my guess, I don't know. But with the review letter that we currently have out to them, I think there's only a few items. And they could just use it as a punch list and go, oh yep, we need to fix that, oh yep, we need to change that. And I don't think it's gonna happen here. Applicants get frustrated because there are these sorts of fundamental design issues that need to get sorted. Sometimes you change something and it creates a new set of issues, but I don't think that's gonna happen. The building was clearly designed for the F1 occupancy. They just need to make sure that it's right. Mainly so for when we go there and they're not following the requirements for an F1, we can point at the plans and say, you designated this as an F1, and now you're going from a low hazard to a moderate hazard factory setting up in an F2. So,
All right, is that okay? Does anybody have any questions for where we are, basically?
I don't, but since you're here, are there any other issues we should be aware of related to the other projects that we're doing on South Street or Union Square, or any of those?
so Union Square, I would say this, just listening to the gentleman that was here, I remember talking about a year and a half ago. Any of the work that he's done, the demolition work, he should have got a permit for. New York State now has the only exception for asbestos testing when it relates to demolition, renovation, or alterations is if it's a single family home and the owner is the sole occupant and is doing the work. Now, if you know, your son or your brother or your dad or whoever, your mom, your aunt comes and helps you, we're not gonna say, oh no, you crossed the threshold. Like, as long as you're not paying someone, it's a friend, you know, I don't think the state's gonna come down on that. But due to a variety of products, principally vermiculite, which was an asbestos substitute, which was used into the early 2000s, they found asbestos mixed in with the fibers in one mine in Ontario, and it was Ontario, British Columbia, Montana, Wyoming, that area they were mining the vermiculite. You can't trace where one batch came versus the other. They weren't putting batch numbers or locations on it. Plus, once you put it in the walls or the ceiling, you know, you probably don't have the
Let me restate that for you. You're gonna give Brian a call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, there was no demolition.
No,
Well,
yeah.
any alteration even, and especially in an old commercial building. So my point here is, and
Brian should call you and get a permit.
we said this to the planning board, is any of these old buildings where they're doing that sort of work, I would ask that you caution them to get a hold of us.
Okay.
Because that'd be the easiest thing, because from what he described, it sounds like he should. And my last major point to this is, those guys down at the state, the asbestos inspectors for the Department of Labor, they're not nearly as friendly and warm as I am. And like, we're talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. They don't mess around. They don't care that it was a misunderstanding or someone said. So I would just ask that, you know, any of these sorts of, we're buying the building, we're getting ready, we're not quite ready for a building permit yet, but we're gonna do some touch-ups, just send them over to us. So this way, you know, we don't want to get into a situation where the state gets involved.
Okay.
But otherwise, Bonaccio's got their building permit from us for phase 2, the new construction. Chris Patton's got permits for the work he's currently doing at 4656 and 10 Broad, the old rating. So they don't have full building permits yet, but for the work that they're doing, it's permitted. And we're just 4656, we should be getting final plans within the next few weeks. And those haven't changed too much from what was submitted to the planning board, so that should be a pretty fast review. 10 Broads had some changes, interior, that, just some code things that they didn't take the time to figure out if they weren't gonna get approval.
How
So,
many skulls were found?
as far as I know, one. We got the phone call too, asking for previous tenants before writing, trying to figure out, like, what's that phone call? They found a body, I was like, okay, well, I'll get you the record and let you know.
So the great source of information there was Wayne Wright and our
Yep.
historian, that's where the entire cemetery
Yes.
was, right? They
God's
got
acre.
moved
Yeah.
from that location back in the late 1800s, right, into Bay Street. So all the folks that were buried there 100 years ago are now in Bay Street.
Except for this
They had the
one.
old
Except,
They just left it
they didn't leave the whole body, they left pieces.
At the risk of irreverence, when they were moving them, didn't somebody at some point when they were moving them, did this person have a head?
So I wonder how many loggers were coming down the Hudson that were just coming, basically day laborers, that they didn't even know who they were.
Yes.
They probably had some sort of pauper's grave for all those
Oh,
sorts
without
of
a doubt.
early workers and
Yeah.
stuff, and they
Yeah.
probably didn't have.
Well, when I said they moved to Bay Street, I didn't mean that there was individual
Yeah.
plots. You can go and see the headstones, and they're in the far down by Bowman Avenue, and they're, in some cases, I mean, they're stacked together.
No kidding.
They did the best they could,
Yeah.
with that.
When they're cold on the last day, and
Yeah.
everybody's looking around.
Oh my goodness, all right, there we go, how we digress.
And the headless horseman was the
Thank you for that update.
Sure thing.
TJ, appreciate it, my friend. Let's see, where are we on our
We
agenda?
have private reports and resolutions at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, so 36 Inc. update, Jeff?
That's all moving forward, as you probably know, I think this has happened before the last meeting. We've hired AJ Architecture to design the space at 36 Inc. We see it releasing and then subletting eventually. So we're moving forward with that. We've had several. The big thing there really, as far as design, is the kitchen, because that's the one that's going to have to fixed. Most of the rest of the space is designed to be as flexible as possible. So the idea, even part of the kitchen, we're looking at, there's a company in Germany that one of the chefs, the local chefs, got us in touch with. And they have a really fascinating sort of mobile kitchen system and interchangeable things. So you can do anything, buffet tables to cooking stations to teaching kitchens to countertops. It's really cool. It's wild. And so the idea would be part of the space, the kitchen space would be that, which could even go next door if you wanted to cater some things like that. So that would even be part of the flexible kitchen. Then you have a smaller sort of fixed kitchen for making things and catering stuff, whatever. So it's but we're moving a pace on that.
Any questions? So update, so we got that update, sorry,
We don't need to, because we.
crew copy, we're set there. And then SBS applications. So talk at the town?
Sorry, so yesterday I sent Suzanne actually sent it for me, a resolution recognizing that we're not going to meet in August. Paul Bacackley, PJ was over here. Paul Bacackley sent us an application last week or early this week for some support on the update that they're doing at the Taco Town restaurant on Hudson Avenue. It is gorgeous, the work that they're planning on doing. Between $58,000 and $62,000. We've got some paperwork processes that we have to go through with them in order to finalize an agreement. But what we'd like to do is to be able to support them through the small business support grant that the LDC has with 50/50 support. So it would be up to $25,000 for their.
So it actually be less than
50,000, yeah, 60,000, right, yeah. Well, the regulations in the program say it's 20, up to 50/50, up to $50,000, so up to $25,000. So, it's a good opportunity to support another local business that maybe isn't quite downtown.
Yeah, and
What
you're
phenomenal
expecting-
citizens they are, my
Yeah.
goodness, I'm glad that they asked.
And of course, they have a business downtown, but you know, the other thing too is that it's all, what you're starting to see is that same kind of thing, where people went, now as you go coming into downtown area, they're like, suddenly, we have to upgrade our building because people are now coming downtown, we want them to stop here on the way, because they're all gonna go downtown.
Right.
So I mean, it's a great sort of, you know, virtuous circle, I think, in many ways.
So you're expecting in September, Pat, to have the completed application for the board to review?
Well, the application is all done, it's just a bit of paperwork to make sure that we have all the paperwork that we need in order to be able to do it. And what we're asking for in the resolution is to be able to have the board say, yes, this is okay, go ahead and move forward with it once you get all the
So
paperwork.
you'll have that in September?
Correct.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you need a motion? which
I
will
do need a
make.
motion, please, yes.
Glad to make.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Any other business?
No.
If nobody else has any, then motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. So now,
Urban renewal, me too?
yeah.
Look at that, I can't throw that off back to you, Judy, look at that. All right, so let us call to order the Glens Falls Urban Renewal Agency meeting. It's still July 10th, we still have a quorum. Our property review committee also is here. Welcome our key advisors and staff. Administrative reports, we have minutes from the regular meeting held on June 12, 2025. Any questions, corrections, concerns, the minutes? Not hearing any, do we have a motion to approve the June 12, 2025 minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Under financial report, you have 6 months of report ending June 30th. Mark?
One Sullivan Zarada for the audit for $3,900 and 2 Fitzgerald bills in total $1,584.50. And I reversed 2 year-end accruals, total $192.76.
Thank you. Any questions for Mark regarding the 6-month financial report? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Under payment of bills, back to you, Mark.
One legal bill for $96, and then Gene Lafford, a portion of the 24 audit for $1,200.
Leave it out.
$1,296.
$12.96.
Make sure you take your pen on the way out.
That's right.
Any questions? Any questions about the payment of the bills? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. I don't believe we have any other business. I don't believe we need to go into executive session. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Stand adjourned until September 11th.
Well, we won't.